Garion, Aunt Pol and Mr. Wolf continue their search across the land for the stolen Orb of Aldur. But just how close are they to finding what they seek? Hello and welcome to the Bottled Imp. Exploring the realms of fantasy! My name is Ken Boyter and today we are going to take a look at David Edding's fantasy series. This is book 3 of the Belgariad. That's how I pronounce it. Julian thinks it's pronounced I can't even pronounce it.
Belgariad.
Thank you. Belgariad. There we go. So if you know how to pronounce it, maybe you could video yourself and post it up on our Facebook page. Anyway, this is book 3, Magician's Gambit. We've already covered book 1, which is the Pawn of Prophecy, and also book 2, which is the Queen of Sorcery. So, just what is kicking off in Magician's Gambit? As I said before, they are seeking the orb. Let's just find out if they find it. The Magician's Gambit, first published in 1983 from Del Rey Books. This is book 3, as I say, of 5. And so in the previous 2 books, we have learnt quite a lot about this world that David Eddings has created. In book 1, we learn about a young farm boy called Garion, and he is brought up by his aunt, who's called Aunt Pol, and also a mysterious vagabond called Mr. Wolf, who's also a storyteller of sorts. Well, things get completely turned up when there's news of a big, powerful magic orb called the Orb of Aldur has been stolen. And we also learn, I think it's in the prelogue in that book, about how the world was created. And it was created by 7 gods, of which one decided that they wanted to infuse their soul in this orb and make a sort of living orb to create power. Unfortunately, though, that god's brother, Torak, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who knows, he actually stole the orb and he wanted to use it for himself. And so, hence, the orb is now gone missing. And just what Garion, Aunt Pol and Mr. Wolf have got to do with it, well, this is what the whole quest is about. It's a coming-of-age story as well. The main focus is on Garion, the farm boy. And over the course of the 2 books, you learn more and more about his powers. He seems to have some kind of mystical, magical powers that he doesn't quite understand and he didn't know was there. And Aunt Pol and Mr. Wolf aren't always exactly what they seem. So, book 3, where does it take us? Well, they have been pursuing the orb. They have inside knowledge, Mr. Wolf does, let's put it that way. I don't want to give any spoilers away. And so they have been traversing the land, getting into all sorts of scrapes, as you can imagine, and they are now closing in on the orb. We have found out that there's a sorcerer called Churuk, if that's how you pronounce it, Ctuchik, that sorcerer. Now he has the orb, so he's stolen it off Torak. And Mr. Wolf, Aunt Pol and Garion, they have found that out and they've picked up a few friends along the way, so they're a bit of a party of adventurers, and they have tracked him via the Vale of Aldur. Now here is quite an important moment because we discover something that not even Mr. Wolf and Aunt Pol, who are very knowledgeable people, they discover something, as well as Garion, that seems impossible. They have seen and witnessed something that is just not possible, or so they thought. And it tags in with Garion, and it tags in with his power, and his learning, his continuing learning curve of just who he is. Plus, along the way, there's this prophecy that keeps cropping up, and the prophecy is going to happen according to a prophecy. Obviously, that's what a prophecy is. Now, Mr. Wolf seems to know a little bit more, and Aunt Pol, than everybody else about this prophecy, and it's implied. It's never explicit exactly what this prophecy is, But along the way, things seem to be shaping up kind of how they want it. Although there is an alternate prophecy. So now there are two prophecies that are on a collision course, and there are two opposing forces that want to make their prophecy come true. Now, there are quite a few themes in this book, and one of the main themes is religion. And the first thing is that it questions the purpose of religion. We meet a character called Relg, and he is a zealot. He's a very extremist religious person. And he has been, I guess you could call it, corrupted by religion. He's gone too far into the spiritual world, but rather than be humane about it, he's got lost in all the religious dogma. So rather than being, as I say, humane and kind and just realising, well, actually, love should be the guiding force, he's more of a stickler for the rules. He's more a stickler for the actual dogma of religion. And therefore, it questions the purpose of religion. Is religion there to be a spiritual guide for the people and be of use and be of help and be a force for good? Or is religion specifically there for power and actually to control the people? And it does a very good job of exploring that debate. As I said, I don't want to give any spoilers there, but I really enjoyed that. I wasn't expecting a big kind of religious debate in this book, and it crops up, and he does it really well. And then the other theme we have here is spirituality, and which is at the opposite scale of religion, because you can be spiritual but not necessarily religious, because again, you don't want to get bogged down with all the dogma and the control and the power and, being told what to think. Spirituality sort of, for me anyway, and also one of the characters, well, it's Garion, he actually, it's coming from inside of him, and he's actually letting his instinct and his inner beliefs guide him. And this is where we learn he starts to have a voice. Well, we learn that in book 2, but this voice in his head becomes stronger and stronger. And at first he was quite afraid of it, but now he's learning to accept it and see the wisdom of this voice. And it also ties in with what they call the will and the word. And that seems to be like a mystical, spiritual, magical force that's building up inside Garion. And he starts to learn that all living things are connected through an energy force, and that this energy force can't actually be destroyed or unmade, if you like, that it actually transforms, and it can only be transformed from one energy source into another energy source. But there was something along the way that kind of disproves that. So now that there's a bit of doubt kicking in, but he's learning more and more about this spiritual force. And also, one of the themes it does examine is friendship. And in this book, the friendship, because as I say, there was a party of adventurers that help Aunt Pol and Mr. Wolf. They actually are being really tested. Their friendships are being stretched to the limit. So then that brings into the question trust and outside influences. When you get an outside influence starting to whisper and trying to manipulate a friendship, how much do you actually trust your friends? What worth do you place on them? And then there are the political issues, and they have been running all the way through each book. Now, in this book, he explores war and slavery, and he looks at the purpose of war. There's a plot strand here that runs through this book that's all about, well, what causes war? And what is the justification for going to war? And why should, what does it take to endanger, thousands of people's lives? And especially if you've got a kingdom or a queendom, is it just like a squabble over royalty and then I'll send my troops in to attack another country? Or is it something that's more justified? Maybe the one country wanted to steal loads of food because they were starving. Is that justification? I don't know, but it does a good job of exploring it. And also slavery. There's a nation in this book where they talk about slavery, and because it's an ancient tradition, they're so used to it, they don't see it as a problem. They don't actually see that it's really inhumane to have slaves. And so there's characters that obviously question that, and he debates the whole point of slavery as well. And then having read books 1 and 2, and obviously now 3, if you have read them, I mean, I started to notice quite a lot of Lord of the Rings similarities. And at first I was thinking, hang on, this is just like Lord of the Rings. This is a bit of a rip-off. This is plagiarism. But then I started to realise, well, no, it's not, because there's enough difference there from Lord of the Rings to actually make this a fresh new story. Yes, you have, there's like the orb, which in effect is the ring, because it's very powerful and it goes missing, gets stolen, and then you have both good and evil trying to seek it. Yes, you do also get various similarities in terms of the characters. So you've got Mr. Wolf, who's a bit like the Gandalf character, and then you've got the Hobbit, Frodo and Bilbo. They're very naive kind of people, a little bit like Garion. So there are similarities, but then I started thinking, well, no, but if you've got a genre, they're gonna have cliches and tropes in there, but it's how you use them, and you can tweak them. And I think David Edding's done a really good job of kind of using the trappings of fantasy, so you know it's a fantasy world, but then he's using them in a likeable way. The quality of writing is good, and there are differences. I found Tolkien's writing a bit more intense, and he goes off on tangents that has nothing to do with the plot. This plot is tighter. I guess that's to do with when it was published, more in the 80s, and so things are a bit more tighter. And I just kind of felt that this was different enough. But if you enjoy Lord of the Rings, then you're going to enjoy this. Now, I must admit, I did find book 3, this one, slightly more enjoyable than book 2. Book 2 was good, but I don't know if I discovered too much more about each character. In this one, there seemed to be a bit more oomph to it, and I discovered a lot more about the characters, which I liked. And this is very much a character-driven story. So if you like more of the same stuff, this book you will love. I do recommend it, because obviously this is 5 books and you think, well, should I carry on reading it? I personally am looking forward to reading book 4. So yeah, my overall thoughts were I did enjoy it. We learned more about the characters and it felt comfortable. He's well established the characters now, and there was a good mix of new characters. I'm hoping some of them will stick around for book 4 as well. And also it is starting to feel like that it's drawing to a close now, that there's a threat looming, and that's becoming more of a conflict, and it's going to all kick off to one big final glorious battle over good and evil. So that was The Magician's Gambit. I do recommend it. The Belgariad, or the Belgrade. What do you call it? Belgrade. I don't know why that doesn't go in my head. The Belgariad. Why, you David Eddings? Magician's Gambit, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It really picks up pace now, and it really kind of kicks off, and there's some really cool new characters in this one. Really thoroughly enjoying this series. It still feels warm and friendly, but there's been danger in there as well, so I like it. And if you're a teenager, you'd love this sort of book, because it's Lord of the Rings light, I guess you could call it. So there you go, that's book 3. Obviously next time we're going to be having The Castle of Wizardry, book 4. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed that, and you can check out books 1 and 2 as well on our YouTube channel. Plus we have loads more reviews and interviews now, and loads more things kicking off at our channel. And also, Twitter and Facebook and all of that. Anyway, that's enough of me rambling on. Until next time, remember, keep it unreal, especially if you're a wizard.